The wine glass was still warm. Lipstick on the rim. Red. Same as the dress she wore out the door 10 minutes ago. She laughed when she left, an actual laugh, then tossed her hair and said, "Don't be jealous, okay?" Like I was some kind of emotional houseplant. Now I'm just sitting here, holding her other earring. She must have dropped it. Or maybe it was some twisted symbol. Like, here, hold this while I go cheat on you in heels. The walls are quiet now. I can still smell her perfume. That expensive one she hides behind the shampoo bottles. The one she only wears when I'm not invited. And I can't stop staring at the envelope. The one I left on her mirror before she even zipped up her dress. She hasn't opened it yet, but she will. Because inside that envelope isn't a love note. It isn't a letter of heartbreak. It's a receipt. And a copy of the lease termination. And the printed text she didn't know I saw. And her new boyfriend's LinkedIn profile with a sticky note on it that says, "Married. 2 kids. Florida." She doesn't know I found everything. She thinks I'm still the guy who cries quietly into the pillow. The one who says, "It's okay, I understand," even when I'm being fed lies like cold soup. She thinks I'll wait here like always, scrolling through my misery like I scroll through emails. She doesn't know where I went earlier today. She doesn't know what I gave to the doorman at his apartment building, or what I handed to his wife. She doesn't know I already moved half my stuff out, that the photos are gone from my drawer, that I canceled the shared bank card while she was curling her hair. She doesn't know that I already cried days ago, alone, while she worked late. And now, I feel nothing. Not rage, not grief, just stillness. And something new. Freedom, maybe. She'll be home in 2 hours. Maybe 3. She'll walk in, humming, maybe texting him goodnight. And then she'll see the envelope. That envelope is the only thing I left her. Well, that and a voicemail she hasn't heard yet. When I said I left her a voicemail, I didn't mean one of those angry, impulsive rants people regret the moment they press send. I rehearsed it. I recorded it 5 times before I got the tone right. Calm. Unshaken. Not weak. Not loud. Just clear. Like the voice of someone who's been bleeding for months but finally decided to stop asking why. I know exactly when she'll listen to it. She always puts her AirPods in before removing her makeup. It's part of her ritual. I used to think it was cute. Now it's just another routine I'm no longer part of. I told her in the message, by the time you hear this, I'll be halfway out of our lives. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just explained. I reminded her of small things. The missed anniversaries. The way she started texting under the blanket. The way she started locking the bathroom door like I was some intruder in my own home. I told her I noticed. That I always noticed. I just didn't want to believe any of it. Then I told her about Everett's wife. Her name is Melanie, by the way. Lovely woman. She cried, but not for herself. She cried for me. Said, "You didn't deserve to find out like this." Funny how I got more kindness in that one afternoon than I've gotten from Kennedy in the past year. Melanie and I sat together at a cafe around the corner from the luxury condo where Everett plays Bachelor. We scrolled through screenshots together, as if we were forensic investigators reconstructing a crime scene, which, in a way, we were. Every emoji felt like a knife. Every "can't wait to see you again," like a nail in the coffin of the man I used to be. I told Melanie she didn't need to do anything, but she insisted. I want her to know she didn't just ruin her marriage, she said. She messed with someone else's life, too. So we planned something small, but surgical. Everett will be getting a package at his office tomorrow morning. Same contents I gave Kennedy, but with one addition, a handwritten note from Melanie, reminding him that his sons will now be spending Christmas with a custody lawyer. I know what you're thinking. Why didn't I confront Kennedy directly? Why not throw the door open, scream, explode, demand answers? The truth is, I didn't need answers anymore. I already had all of them. And I was tired of being the guy begging for clarity from someone who treated honesty like an optional setting. She left for her date, like she always did. High heels, perfect makeup, no goodbye kiss. Just a little grin that said she thought she was still in control. That's the part that keeps echoing in my head. She really thought I'd just take it. I didn't follow her. I didn't track her phone. I didn't even wait by the window. Instead, I went in my friend Jonah's garage, the only person who still sees me as a man and not some pathetic ghost of one. Jonah let me crash there. We drank lukewarm beer and watched an old football game on mute. He didn't ask questions. He just handed me a screwdriver and said, "If you want to break something, the lawnmower's been pissing me off for weeks." I didn't break it, but I did unscrew every useless part until it looked as hollow as I felt. We didn't talk about her. We didn't need to. The silence said enough. I could breathe again. Meanwhile, back at the apartment, which, by now, doesn't feel like mine anymore, I imagine Kennedy arriving home tipsy and smug, tossing her bag on the counter, humming that stupid tune she always hums when she thinks she's gotten away with something. She'll see the envelope. She'll open it. And then she'll play the voicemail. And for the first time in months, it won't be me who's stunned into silence. Because this isn't about punishing her. It's about ending it. No confrontation. No closure. Just a quiet detonation. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was tortured by the image of them together. I'd already worn those images raw in my mind over the past few weeks. It was something else now. Something colder. Like the moment after a fire has finally burned itself out and you're left sitting in the ashes. I lay on Jonah's old couch, the spring under my left hip jabbing just enough to keep me conscious, staring at the water-stained ceiling, waiting for her to respond. She didn't. Not a single call. Not a single text. Not even a passive-aggressive emoji like she usually sent when she was caught in a lie. Just nothing. Silence. By morning, I convinced myself she was gone. Vanished. Maybe she'd seen the envelope, packed a bag, and fled before reality could settle in. For a brief, cowardly moment, I hoped that's what she did, that I'd come back to an empty apartment and never have to hear her try to explain. But that fantasy shattered the moment Jonah's phone buzzed, and he handed it to me with a look I didn't like. "She's looking for you," he muttered, eyes avoiding mine. Sounded calm. Too calm. I took the phone, and the second I said hello, I knew I'd underestimated her. "Hey babe," she chirped, like nothing happened. "You left me a weird letter. Want to explain?" There was no trace of panic in her voice. No remorse. No shame. Just this syrupy, performative innocence that made my skin crawl. I stayed quiet. I let her talk. I wanted to hear where she was going to take this. "You're being really dramatic," she said after a beat. "If this is about Everett, we can talk. It's not what you think." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the script was so tired, so laughably fragile. I knew what she was trying to do. If she could keep the tone light, keep me from escalating, maybe she could control the narrative. But I wasn't the same person I was 24 hours ago. Something had snapped. And not in the explosive way she was prepared for. No, I had snapped quietly. Strategically. And that's far more dangerous. I simply replied, "You have until noon to be out of the apartment." She paused. "Excuse me." "Noon," I repeated. "The locks are being changed. The landlord's already aware. Your key won't work after that." She started to protest, something about legal rights, about shared lease agreements, but I hung up before she could finish. I wasn't interested in her explanations anymore. I didn't want to hear her tell me how confused she'd been or how lonely she'd felt. I knew that song. I had memorized every lyric. And I wasn't singing along this time. I took Jonah's spare keys and drove back to the apartment. It felt different now, like a place I once lived in years ago but had long since outgrown. I walked through each room with a trash bag, collecting the reminders, her slippers, her vanity mirror, the travel brochures she'd hidden in the kitchen drawer. I didn't touch anything valuable. I wasn't out for revenge. I just wanted space. Clean, empty space. A space where her scent didn't linger in the sheets and her echo didn't rattle through the walls. At 11:52 a.m., she walked in. Not with tears. Not with apologies. She walked in like she owned the air in that room. That same red dress from the night before, a little wrinkled now. She leaned against the doorframe and crossed her arms like I was a child having a tantrum. "You're not serious," she said, eyes scanning the boxes. "Levi, come on. This is ridiculous." I didn't respond. I just handed her a folder with the printouts from Everett's wife. Photos. Messages. The flight itinerary. The love poem she sent that accidentally auto-corrected soulmate to saltmate, which made both women laugh for entirely different reasons. She flipped through it slowly. And that's when her smile cracked. "You went through my stuff?" she hissed. That was it. That was her defense. Not denial. Not regret. Just offense that she'd been caught. As if her betrayal was less important than my disobedience to her imaginary privacy boundaries. I stared at her, really stared, and realized I didn't love this person anymore. I loved the version of her that existed before she turned into a stranger who slept beside me with secrets in her lungs. She tried again. "We can fix this." I finally spoke. "You broke something I was never strong enough to protect." And then I asked her to leave. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stared at me like I was the villain in her movie. Then she walked out, heels clicking across the floor like punctuation marks in a story she thought she controlled. But I wasn't done yet. Not even close. Because what she didn't know was that Everett was already en route to the surprise waiting at his own front door. Everett's wife didn't call me back after our meeting. She didn't need to. I already knew what she was going to do. She had a look in her eyes that afternoon, a kind of quiet steel, like someone who'd been lied to one too many times and finally decided to step into the fire. What I didn't expect, though, was how far she was willing to go. It started with a video message. Not from Melanie, from Everett. I got it the evening after I kicked Kennedy out. My phone buzzed while I was standing in line at a hardware store, buying a new lock for a door I couldn't bear to leave unchanged. I opened the message and saw his face, pale, tense, his perfect Wall Street composure fraying at the edges. "Look, man," he began, voice low, almost pleading. "I don't know what she told you, but..." I didn't even finish it. I deleted it before he could finish spinning whatever self-serving monologue he'd practiced in the mirror. What struck me more than the words was the panic. It wasn't the voice of a man who felt guilty. It was the voice of a man who realized his life was unraveling. I had a good guess why. Later that night, Jonah handed me his laptop and said, "You might want to see this." It was a private Facebook post. Melanie had uploaded it 2 hours prior. A calm, composed, devastating video confession. She didn't name Kennedy or Everett directly, but anyone in their circles would know. She laid out the facts like a lawyer reading a case summary. No emotion, no drama, just receipts, dates, locations, screenshots, the flight confirmation with both their names, the hotel welcome email with champagne in the notes. The comments were already flooding in. Friends, family, co-workers. "Wait, what? Everett? This explains so much. I thought she was married. Melanie, I'm so sorry. We love you." It went viral in their little world. I didn't ask her to do it. I wouldn't have. But I'll admit, for a brief moment, I felt like someone finally turned on a light in the cave I'd been walking through for months. And then, silence again. No calls from Kennedy. No texts. No door slamming. Just a full 36 hours of pure, unbroken quiet. It should have felt peaceful, but it didn't. It felt like the moment before a tornado touches down. Calm, but unnatural. She showed up again on a Sunday. I was cleaning out the closet, folding shirts I hadn't worn in months, when I heard a knock. Not the buzzer. A knock, like she was trying not to alert the building. I opened the door, and there she was. No makeup, hoodie, sunglasses. She looked like a shadow of the woman who laughed on her way to dinner a few nights earlier. "I just want to talk," she said. Her voice was brittle, as if the words tasted strange in her mouth. I stepped aside. I didn't say anything. She walked in slowly, like she was afraid to wake something up. Then she stood there in the living room, staring at the couch like she couldn't believe it looked so normal. "I didn't know he was married," she said softly. I didn't believe her, but I let her talk. "I mean, I kind of knew," she added. "But he said it was complicated. They were separated. He told me it was almost over." I waited for her to say she was sorry. I waited for her to admit she destroyed something. But she didn't. Instead, she turned toward me and asked, "Why did you humiliate me like that?" I nearly laughed. "I didn't humiliate you," I said quietly. "You did that all on your own." She crossed her arms like she was bracing for cold wind. "You blindsided me. You didn't even give me a chance to explain." "You mean lie?" I asked. Her eyes narrowed. "You've always been so passive, Levi. You never stood up for anything. You never fought back. And now you go nuclear? With her? You think that makes you strong." That's when I realized what this was really about. It wasn't about love. It wasn't even about guilt. It was about control. She didn't miss me. She missed having someone who never made her feel small, even when she was. "You're just mad," I said, that I stopped begging. She didn't answer that. Instead, she turned away and looked at the wall, blinking rapidly like she was trying not to cry. "I've got nowhere to go tonight," she mumbled. And that's when the ache returned, not for her, but for the man I used to be. The man who would have said, "Stay. Let's talk. Let's fix this." The man who would have made excuses, even for betrayal. But that man was done. "There's a motel 2 blocks down," I said. "They take cash." She flinched, just for a second. Then she turned back toward the door, her voice cracking as she muttered, "I hope you're proud of yourself." And this time, I did smile. Because for the first time in years, I kind of was. 3 days passed. Not a word from her. Not even a text. I assumed she was hiding somewhere, licking her wounds and blaming everyone but herself. I tried not to think about her. I really did. I spent those days in motion, moving, sorting, cleaning, ripping old memories out of the walls like mold you didn't realize had spread so deep. And yet, no matter how much I tried to distract myself, there was this buzzing in the back of my mind. I kept wondering what she was planning, because if there was one thing I learned about Kennedy in the past year, it's that silence never meant surrender, it meant strategy. Then, on a rainy Thursday, it happened. I got a call from work around 9 a.m. I was still staying with Jonah, crashing on the couch, pretending like I had my life under control. My manager's voice was tight, concerned. "Hey, Levi. I'm not sure how to say this, but..." Kennedy came by the office. I sat up, heart already thudding. "What?" "She said she was dropping off something for you." I didn't see what it was. She gave it to the receptionist and left. Real fast. After work, I drove to the office just to see it for myself. Sure enough, waiting at the front desk was a small white envelope with my name scribbled in handwriting I knew too well. It wasn't sealed. Inside were two things, a folded letter and a tiny flash drive. The letter wasn't long. A few short sentences. All handwritten, all too neat for the chaos it delivered. "You think you know everything, but you only saw one side. Watch this. I hope it makes you feel as small as you made me feel." No signature. No apology. Just that cold parting shot. I stared at the flash drive in my hand, unsure whether to laugh or be afraid. For a second, I considered throwing it out. But I couldn't. Curiosity, that cruel little voice, got the better of me. Back at Jonah's place, I plugged it into his old laptop while he sat nearby with a beer, saying nothing. The screen flickered, then opened to a single video file. I clicked. It was a video of Kennedy. Not from that week. This was old. Maybe 6 or 7 months ago. She was sitting in our kitchen, talking to her phone like it was a therapist. The video was clearly meant for Everett. I recognized his name halfway through when she said, "Levi's still trying to make things better." It's honestly sad at this point. I told him I was working late last night. "I was with you, of course." I felt my stomach twist, but I kept watching. "I think he suspects something," she added. "But I just say he's being controlling. That shuts him up. He's so afraid of being the bad guy, he'll let me walk all over him." Jonah looked at me, but I didn't meet his eyes. I couldn't. The video continued for another minute. Nothing graphic. Just her rambling about how easy it was to manipulate me. How I never questioned anything unless she gave him permission to. Then she ended it by saying something that didn't just sting, it gutted me. Honestly, I think he's the reason I started cheating in the first place. He's so soft. So easy to ignore. I sat back in the chair, numb. It's one thing to suspect your partner stopped respecting you. It's another to hear them say it casually, like you're a boring coworker they can't remember the name of. The silence after the video ended felt heavy, like the air had thickened. Jonah didn't speak for a while. Then he finally said, "You can't come back from that, man." I nodded. Not because I agreed, but because I knew what I needed to do next. The flash drive wasn't just a final jab, it was a weapon. She wanted me to break. She wanted me to spiral. She wanted proof that she was right, that I was spineless and soft, and would collapse under the weight of knowing how little I meant to her. But instead of crumbling, I did something else. I took that flash drive and made a copy. Then I sent it to someone she never expected. Her mother. Now before you call me cruel, you need to understand, her mom loved me. We used to bake together during holidays. She called me her bonus son. And last Thanksgiving, when Kennedy skipped dinner last minute for a friend's emergency, her mom gave me this long, worried look and said, "She's slipping away. Levi, are you okay?" I lied and told her I was fine. I smiled through it like I always did. But not this time. This time, I included a brief note. "I know this is hard to see, but it's the truth. I just needed someone else to hear it." I didn't expect her to reply. I didn't even expect her to believe me. But 2 hours later, I got a text from her. "I'm so sorry, Levi. You didn't deserve this. I always knew something wasn't right." Then she added something I didn't expect. "If you need help moving your stuff, I'll come." I stared at that text for a long time. Longer than I needed to. And I realized that even in the rubble of betrayal, there were still small, unexpected kindnesses. From people who never owed me anything. From people who simply refused to watch someone decent get destroyed quietly. But Kennedy wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Because the very next day, I got served. The envelope was thin and white, taped to the door of Jonah's apartment. It wasn't the kind of envelope that screamed danger. It looked almost harmless, like a bill or a flyer. But I knew. The second I saw the handwriting, the perfect cursive on the front, Levi Morgan, I knew she was about to do something insane. Inside was a folded letter on firm paper. Not typed. Handwritten. Elegant. Cold. This is notice of my intent to pursue legal action for character defamation and emotional distress. Your campaign to humiliate me publicly has crossed a line. You made me a target. If you don't retract your statements and delete all shared content within 48 hours, I will take further steps. No lawyer's name. No official letterhead. Just Kennedy. For a few seconds, I actually laughed out loud. Not because it was funny, but because the woman who walked out the door in a red dress for another man now wanted to sue me for emotional distress. I stared at the signature at the bottom. Respectfully, Kennedy. I don't know what part of that was supposed to be respectful. Jonah took the letter and read it 3 times. Then he looked up and muttered, "She's lost it." That should have been the end of it. A dramatic, empty threat. But I underestimated how far she was willing to go when her control started slipping. The next day, I got an email from our old landlord. Apparently, Kennedy had filed a formal complaint that I illegally removed her belongings and violated the terms of the lease by creating a hostile environment. The landlord said he was obligated to follow up and strongly encouraged us to resolve the matter privately. Privately? The only thing private between us now was her browser history and how many lies she could stack before one finally crushed her. At this point, I was tired. Not just tired of her, but tired of myself. I had spent so much of our marriage absorbing the damage, staying quiet, waiting for her to return to some better version of herself. But there was no better version. There was just Kennedy, a woman who used people, twisted stories, and painted herself the victim every time someone refused to let her hold the brush. So I did something that surprised even me. I wrote back. Not to her. To the landlord. I sent him a full timeline, with attachments, lease agreements, timestamps, my signed release papers, the day she abandoned the apartment, and a formal letter withdrawing my name from renewal. I even included a printed screenshot of her text saying, "I don't care about that stupid place anymore. It's yours." Then I blind copied someone else. Her boss. Now, this was delicate. I didn't want to ruin someone's life over spite. But there was one thing Kennedy never told me. She'd been having her little dates during company hours. And one of the trips to visit a client in Atlanta, yeah, that wasn't a client. That was Everett. Same hotel, same room, different excuse. I didn't send the photos. I didn't send the texts. I didn't need to. I just asked one question. Was Kennedy cleared for personal travel during the hours of 1 to 6 p.m. on April 13th? I asked because she used our shared account to book a hotel in Atlanta that day, and she told me she was working on a corporate pitch. That's all it took. 3 hours later, I got a reply from the HR director. Polite, concise, lethal. Thank you for your email. We'll review this internally. We appreciate your discretion. By nightfall, Kennedy called. No warning. No voicemail. Just her name lighting up the screen. I didn't answer. She called again. Then again. 12 missed calls. One after another like a storm knocking harder each time. And then, finally, a text. Why would you do that? Why are you trying to ruin me? I didn't reply. Because she still didn't get it. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't cruelty. This was the end of a chapter she refused to believe was closing. But the real twist came 2 days later. I was walking home from the grocery store, just minding my own business, when a car pulled up slowly beside me. Black sedan. Tinted windows. I froze. For a second, I actually thought maybe Everett was inside, come to talk like men. But the window rolled down, and it wasn't him. It was Melanie, Everett's wife. She looked different, sharper, confident, like someone who'd walked through the fire and come out the other side wearing armor. You free for coffee? She asked. I blinked. Now. She smiled faintly. Yeah, now. I think it's time we compared notes. And just like that, I realized. Kennedy thought I was alone. But she was wrong. I wasn't. The coffee shop was half empty when Melanie and I sat down. It smelled like cinnamon and burnt espresso, and for a moment, it all felt too ordinary for what we were about to discuss. She wore a navy blazer, no rings on her fingers. Her nails were short, clean. There was something about her posture, very still, very precise, that told me she wasn't just here for closure. She had a purpose. We didn't dive in right away. There was a strange mutual silence between us as we stirred our drinks, two strangers tied together by the wreckage of people who claimed to love us. When she finally spoke, she didn't ease in. "He's blaming you," she said bluntly. "Told our mutual friends you manipulated me. That I made the whole thing up to get back at him." I let out a small breath through my nose. "That sounds about right." She looked me dead in the eye. So I dug. That's when she pulled out a small black folder from her bag. She slid it across the table. I opened it slowly, and inside were records, financial statements, phone logs, and a printed spreadsheet with dates, times, initials. "This is every trip they took together," she said. "Every charge on his company card. Every unexplained mileage report. And not just Kennedy." I looked up. "Not just." "There were two others," she said, and her mouth twisted slightly like she hated even saying it out loud. "Before your wife. Maybe more. I only found two he was reckless enough to leave evidence of." I sat back, stunned. Kennedy wasn't the exception. She was part of a pattern. And it hit me, hard. All this time, I'd been mourning the loss of something I thought was ours. A betrayal I thought was personal. But I wasn't even special enough to be her only mistake. Melanie kept talking. "He likes married women. They don't ask for commitment. They protect his secret by default." I stared at the folder, mind spinning. So this wasn't love. This was routine. She nodded. "And Kennedy's not innocent. I know that. But I also know someone needs to stop him." I didn't answer right away. I didn't know how. I was still trying to reconcile the version of my wife I'd married with the version I was being forced to accept. Someone so detached from consequence she never even thought to check if she was the first. Melanie leaned in. "Look, I'm not asking you to fight this battle with me. I've already contacted HR at his firm. I've hired someone. I'm building a case. But if there's anything else you're sitting on..." I took a long sip of my coffee. It tasted stale now. Burnt. But I nodded. "Yeah, there's something." Because the truth was, I had everything. Not just screenshots. Not just the voice message she never knew I recorded. I had the deleted backups of conversations, the synced photos from the cloud, the messages where she bragged to a friend about how easy it was to lie to me. At first, I saved them for closure. For truth. But now, I saw it clearly. They were evidence, not just of a broken marriage, but of a manipulative man who collected women like secrets, and a wife who weaponized trust as a means of escape. We exchanged information. Part of me still couldn't believe this was my life, trading files in coffee shops, coordinating timelines with a woman whose name I hadn't even known 2 weeks earlier. But here we were. Before we parted, Melanie said something that stuck with me. "You're not soft, Levi. You just loved hard. And they thought that made you weak." It didn't. I didn't cry. But something inside me cracked in a different way. Not from pain this time, but release. Someone had finally put words to the thing I couldn't. When I got back to Jonah's place, the door was already unlocked. My heart jumped. I stepped inside and froze. Kennedy was sitting at the kitchen table. Hair down. Eyes red. A suitcase by her feet. I didn't speak. She did. I lost my job. No apology. No explanation. Just that. I stood still. So? She looked at me like she didn't recognize me. I thought maybe I could stay here. Just for a few nights. I laughed. Actually laughed. Bitter. Sharp. "You really think that's still an option?" Her voice cracked. "I have nowhere else to go." I looked at her for what felt like a lifetime. I saw every version of her, the one I loved, the one who lied, the one who vanished, and the one who now sat in front of me pretending to be stranded by her own destruction. "You had somewhere," I said quietly. "You just set it on fire." Then I pointed to the door. And for once, she didn't fight. She stood up slowly, picked up her suitcase, and walked out. No dramatic scene, no final words. Just the soft thud of the door clicking shut. This time, I didn't feel hollow. This time, I felt free. But it wasn't over. Because the next morning, I got a call that changed everything. The phone call came just after 7 a.m. The screen said unknown, but something in me knew who it was before I even picked up. I answered with my heart already bracing, as if more bad news was inevitable. But it wasn't bad news. It was a lawyer, not one hired by Kennedy, not Everett's team either. It was Melanie's. Her case had gained traction. Apparently, after she submitted the documentation we'd both gathered, multiple former employees from Everett's firm stepped forward. Some had heard rumors. One even admitted to being pressured to cover for his trips. The firm was now conducting a full internal investigation, and Melanie was being praised privately for her bravery. You've been listed as a corroborating witness, the lawyer said. But more importantly, thank you for helping her build this. After we hung up, I just sat there in the kitchen, staring at my coffee. Not because I was surprised, but because for the first time in months, something good had finally come out of this wreckage. Not revenge, not destruction, just truth. A few days later, I met Melanie again. We didn't go to a cafe this time. We met at a bookstore. She handed me a small paperback, something about boundaries and rebuilding identity. I almost rolled my eyes at first, but she just smiled and said, "You don't have to read it. Just keep it." We talked for a while, this time about things that weren't connected to pain. Childhood memories, the worst meals we ever made, the weird comfort of cleaning out drawers when everything in life feels chaotic. There was laughter this time. Real laughter. Not nervous, not bitter. Just two people slowly stepping out of the shadow of someone else's choices. We didn't start dating. Not then. It wasn't like that. It was something gentler. Two people who understood brokenness, not trying to fix each other, but simply not pretending anymore. In the weeks that followed, I signed a new lease. My own place. Nothing fancy, but it felt like mine. I got new dishes, new towels, a new rhythm. I called my sister, who I'd ignored during the worst parts of the marriage. She cried when I said, "I'm sorry I shut you out." She sent me a plant the next day with a card that said, "Don't forget to water yourself too." Kennedy never reached out again. Not after the job loss. Not after the investigation into Everett began. I don't know where she went, and honestly, I don't need to. I don't wish her harm. I just don't give her space in my thoughts anymore. One Saturday morning, I finally cleared the last box of old things from the back of the closet. Inside it, at the bottom, was a card she'd given me on our second anniversary. It said, "Thank you for never giving up on me." I stared at it for a while. Then I put it in the trash. Because the truth is, I didn't give up. I simply chose myself this time. And that's not giving up. That's growing up. Today, I went for a walk. Just me. No headphones, no distractions. I felt the sun on my face, the breeze pulling at my jacket, and for the first time in a long, long time, I felt like I had room to breathe. I'm not who I was, and I'm okay with that. Final note. To anyone reading this who thinks they're too soft, too forgiving, too afraid to let go, you're not weak. You're just human. And sometimes, surviving something quietly is its own kind of strength. Choose yourself, even if it takes longer than it should. I did, and I'm still here, still standing, still healing, and honestly, hopeful.